Good evening and welcome to the second night of the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden's 2009 Summer Camp Film Festival. My name is Dave Wilt, and I'll be your host that has been set off on a cinematic voyage of adventure with Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. This 1966 movie was called Godzilla, Ebirah, and Mothra, Great Duel in the Southern Sea in its Japanese incarnation. Yes, we've got triple monster action tonight. Actually, a fourth giant monster shows up, briefly, only to be fried by Godzilla's breath fairly quickly. So here we're going to see Mothra here. With very few exceptions, the Godzilla films followed the multiple monster pattern. This was not a unique format for giant monster films. As early as 1925's The Lost World and 1933's King Kong, filmmakers found that pitting one monster against another allowed for a different sort of screen action compared to the monster versus puny humans conflict. In the 1940s, Hollywood applied this to regular horror films as well. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. They all operated under the theory that if one monster is good, 2, 3, 4, 5 monsters would be better. The Godzilla films took this to another level. After the 1954 original, the franchise changed direction and spent most of its time and energy on intra-monster battles, rather than scenes of soldiers and scientists futilely attacking Godzilla with their puny weapons. The challenge became, how do we rationalize the presence of multiple monsters, and how do we come up with a reasonable ending? In the mid-1960s, Godzilla was also elevated to the status of protector of the Earth, although this was not necessarily a conscious decision on his part. That is, he would unwittingly save the world from other more sinister monsters, but chiefly as a function of his own belligerence or attempts at self-preservation, rather than some altruistic instinct in his reptilian brain. Another challenge was creating worthy monster adversaries for Godzilla. Over the years, these included mutated dinosaurs and reptiles like Anguirus, Megalodon, Wotan, Hydra, giant moths like Mothra and Bactra, giant praying mantises, giant alien insects, Megadyrus, for example, a giant alien cockroach, there we see Megalon, a sort of lion-dog combination over here called King Caesar, a plant hybrid called Violante, giant shrimp, that's a contradiction, Ebirah, we're going to see tonight, a sort of cat reptile called Kibara right there, robots and cybernetic creatures like Gigan, MechaGodzilla, there's MechaGodzilla at the bottom down there, Bulgaria, etc. And even a pollution monster, there we see Hedorah down in the lower left-hand corner. You will notice that for some strange reason, most of these monsters are bipedal, and they actually sort of look like they could be a man in a suit. In tonight's movie, we have giant Mothra, that's a great name, a benevolent monster in the kaiju or giant monster canon, as well as the primary villain, Ebirah. Ebirah is a giant shrimp, lobster, crab hybrid, and many Godzilla fans consider Ebirah to be hardly a worthy opponent for Godzilla. No superpowers, he's limited to operating in the water, he can't fly, and so on. But that can partially be explained by the genesis of tonight's movie's script. One of the interesting aspects of tonight's movie is that Godzilla was originally not intended to be the star. In fact, the film was conceived as a Toho production using the King Kong character. But a dispute with the U.S. owner of the rights forced the producers to change the script and make it a Godzilla film instead. Someone once said the script changes chiefly consisted of crossing out the words King Kong and writing in the word Godzilla. King Kong, of course, was the giant ape created for the 1933 Hollywood movie of the same name. As we discussed last week, The stop-motion animation in that film was created by Willis O'Brien, who returned to giant apes with Son of Kong in the late 1940s, calling Joe Young. A man in a suit giant ape had been featured in the British picture Conga in 1961, and in 1963, Toho made arrangements with Hollywood to pit King Kong against Godzilla in the third Godzilla movie released in 1963. This film was quite popular internationally, even though some fans of the original King Kong deprecated the shabby ape suit used by Toho. Apparently, Toho wanted to continue the franchise with tonight's movie, and they ran into some snags and they substituted Godzilla instead, making this the seventh Godzilla movie. The non-Godzilla origins of the script are rather obvious if you know where to look. For example, this movie does not feature Godzilla or other monsters threatening large cities. The action is largely restricted to one tropical island and the area around it. You'll also see Godzilla acting rather protectively of a young woman, which is more like King Kong's thing. Curiously, Toho did resurrect the King Kong character several years later for King Kong Escapes, which did not feature Godzilla, but did include a robotic King Kong and also a giant dinosaur called Borosaurus. This feature film was inspired by a television cartoon series about King Kong, which had begun in 1966. This was actually animated in Japan as a co-production with a United States company called Rankin Bass. And they were originally involved in the Godzilla versus the Sea Monster project when it was conceived as a King Kong movie. Then when they pulled King Kong out, Godzilla came in. Now, the Godzilla costume altered over the years, and the version you see here tonight is sometimes called the Cookie Monster style. This may have been a deliberate attempt to make him seem friendlier and less vicious. In the second series in the 1980s and 1990s, the costume became fiercer in appearance, and next week, as you see on the right-hand side, you'll see even leaner and meaner Godzilla in Godzilla 2000. But tonight's movie adds Cookie Monster Godzilla. All right. If you have attended previous Hirshhorn summer camps, you may have unpleasant memories of the theme songs I sometimes write for movies that don't have them. Well, done it again. This movie didn't have a theme song, so I wrote a theme song for it, and I will now sing it for you. Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from Tokyo Bay aboard a tiny ship. Ryota, searching for his bro, vanished out at sea. He stole a boat and set out afloat to pals for company, to pals for company. Era started getting rough, the tiny ship was tossed. If not for the help of Godzilla, Ryota would be lost. Ryota would be lost. The ship set ground on the shore of this uncharted desert isle with Godzilla, Ebira too, Mothra, and her tribe. A bank robber, the red bamboo terrorist too, here on Godzilla's eye. All right, just about time for the movie started. Take just a minute to switch over, and then we'll let it roll. Prepare to be shocked, perplexed, amused, astonished, entertained, educated by Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. And don't forget to come back next week for the final summer camp Godzilla movie, Godzilla 2000. Enjoy the night.